My name is Nick Jaskolski. I am a Life Scout with Troop 142. I'm here with Lieutenant Colonel Ty Parker, Battalion Commander of 2nd Battalion, 142nd Field Artillery Brigade. It's February 2nd, 2019. We're at the Armed Forces Reserve Center in Barling, Arkansas. I'm here with another scout, Chorde Bartholomew, and this is a interview for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. Thanks for doing this interview with us.
You're welcome.
So I guess basically to start, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, and raised in a variety of states, to include Tennessee, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and just ended up here in Arkansas.
So who are your parents?
My parents are Guy Parker and Marie Gamboa, and so my dad actually served in the Navy, and that's how he and my mother met over in Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow.
And ended up getting married.
Is that why y'all moved around a lot? Was it?
We did, yeah. Typical kind of Navy brat, but he got out of the Navy pretty young, and so when I say young, so I was actually pretty young, and then ended up he took another job, and so that we ended up moving because of that job quite a bit. So.
Do you have any siblings?
I do have two younger brothers. Yeah, and so I'm the oldest, and they both also were in the Army National Guard for a little bit and served, I think, about 6 years. The other one for just about 4 years.
4 years? Mm-hmm. So you originally joined the National Guard. Did you enlist originally?
I did. So I originally enlisted in the Arkansas Army National Guard as an 11 Bravo infantry soldier. Out of Batesville, Arkansas, 2nd of the 153rd Infantry, and then after going to college, or while going to college, I transitioned over to the Field Artillery Unit over in Charlie Battery, which is no longer existing, for 1st Battalion, 142nd.
So you originally were an enlisted soldier before you went and became an officer. How did you become an officer? Did you go to college?
I did. So I pursued college, and one of the NCOs, a readiness NCO, an E7, communicated with me, talked with me about pursuing OCS, and so I visited the Arkansas State Officer Candidate School. Kind of did an interview there, and really enjoyed the challenge, and just took it on and became an officer.
Oh. So what motivated you to want to join the National Guard?
Originally, my motivation to join the National Guard was to take advantage of some of the college money, the GI Bill that was available. And so, it's been interesting. It's been a great experience once I joined the National Guard and began utilizing the benefits that are available. The friendships that I formed during the weekend, during annual training, etc., really became important to me. And so I just kind of continued on because of that. So
when you enlisted, where did you go to basic training?
I actually went to Fort Benning, Georgia, for both my basic and AIT, Advanced Individual Training. So all at once. I went in June timeframe, finished around late September timeframe. So. Do
you remember your drill sergeants?
I do remember my drill sergeants. I don't remember their names. I just remember their faces, and the hats and kind of the yelling part, because back then they could really yell at you a lot.
So why did you choose? So you chose National Guard for the benefits. Did you initially join kind of wanting to become an officer, or?
I did. Yeah, that's a great question. So originally the plan was always to go to basic training and AIT, and then come back, go to college. And I was actually interested in pursuing active duty, but due to changes in personal and career decisions or progressions that were being made, I stayed in the National Guard. So, yeah.
So, what was your family's reaction when you enlisted? Were they kind of like all for it, or?
Yeah, both my mom and my dad were very supportive. So, no surprise. I think they kind of figured that I would pursue that route. So, it wasn't a surprise.
And how long were you enlisted before you went to the Officer Candidate School?
I was enlisted for almost 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was an E6 when I transitioned into OCS, and then became a second lieutenant.
Wow.
Yeah.
So whenever, see, you went to air assault school?
I did.
Did you go as an enlisted soldier? Or?
I did not. I actually went to air assault school when I was a senior captain, 03.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
I enjoy physical challenges, so it's a kind of constant, like, hey, stay in shape, let's see if I can do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, you went when you were a captain. Did you, what motivated you to want to go to air assault school? The challenge? And...
Oh, yeah, just the challenge, the physicalness. I enjoyed basic training, so I'm a big fan of Fort Benning, Georgia, being infantry, basic training, AIT. I actually gained about 15 pounds in basic training and actually grew a little bit taller as well. And so just the, I enjoy physical fitness. I enjoy things like CrossFit, et cetera. So air assault was just kind of a, hey, let's go see if we can do this.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Rappelling out helicopters.
Yeah, and also just the ruck march and climbing and rappelling up and down the wall and doing the obstacle courses. Those are fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were combat deployed in your career?
I was deployed. I've only been deployed once. Deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom back in 2005, 2006 timeframe. So during that deployment, we were actually tasked. I deployed with the Bravo Battery, 1st of the 142nd, the Bandits. We went as a military police unit during that time frame. So we were tasked with going up north of Baghdad, and then we're also the battery or the company split up, and so we moved my platoons. We moved to Abu Ghraib, which is the prison. And we assisted in closing the prison down and moving all of the detainees over to Camp Cropper, which is right outside of Baghdad International Airport. And so that was the bulk of our mission during that time there. We also did some, we provided FOB security, also provided some convoy operations, and mostly really engaged in detainee operations.
What are some memories that if you want to share from that experience of being deployed?
Yeah, I think so. So really, the experience of being deployed was really learning leadership lessons learned, but some of the memories I can still just recall, just kind of the starkness, and also being in another country where we are kind of the force coming in. And just recognizing that, hey, not only how similar Baghdad was to America in terms of families just rolling around in cars, going to the grocery store, going to school, etc. Still a different environment, but still very similar, other than the fact that English is not the main language, and but even driving down streets, you can see there's little restaurants on the side, coffee shops, little marketplaces, and apartment buildings. And so while it's still very similar, the differences between the cultures and just the type of people were pretty, it's contrasted. But I enjoyed it from a cultural learning and just recognizing that, all the differences in the world. So, yeah.
While you were over there, what was like the locals' reaction and I guess attitude towards American troops?
Well, and so the attitudes towards us, it really was dependent upon the situation. I can recall during one particular where we had what we call an entry control point, and when we also did a traffic kind of stop, where there was one family and he was in a Mercedes-Benz station wagon, large family, packed, and I know the father was kind of glaring at me. It wasn't like, hey, thank you. It was more of, hey, I'm interrupting, and I don't know where this family was going. Right. But, and there was a big traffic jam. But I could definitely sense his frustration with us being there. Because, and I could see that too. And I put myself in his place of, hey, what if they were here and are in America doing the same thing? Right. And then we had all these weapons and body armor, etc. Right. And also visiting different towns as far as when we did our area patrolling with the interpreters that I had, really getting kind of that one-on-one conversation with the sheikhs, i.e. the majors of the town, Just learning that some of them did embrace the fact that we were there,
Right.
and others were not quite so happy with the fact that American forces were there. So it's really dependent upon both the situation and probably part of their political leanings on how they felt about Saddam Hussein
Right.
versus whether they're for or against kind of what he was doing.
Right.
So
When you were in Iraq, did you work a lot with like local police and all that?
not as much. No, I had my own platoon, and during the area patrolling, I had 2 interpreters that I would work with on a daily basis. So we would just go out to the different identified towns outside of the area that we worked in up north, and then just set up conversations. So not really working a lot with the local militia or local police force.
So when you were over there, you were a platoon leader, in charge of a platoon?
I was. I actually I went over as a platoon leader, and then I picked up another platoon while I was over there. So I had 2 platoons that I was responsible for. So for about almost 80, was it 80 soldiers? Yeah, about 80 soldiers.
So while you were over there, how were you able to stay in touch with like friends and family back home?
Yeah, what's great about today's world is the internet makes a lot of things available. So through internet connectivity, I was able to at least once, twice, maybe 3 times a week have conversations via Skype. It wasn't Skype back then, but some type of video chat with my family. So and then emails. Right, emails were kind of a constant back and forth. So that was available for the most part, almost on a daily basis. So being connected at home, I think made it a lot easier. But it also made it tougher because you kind of knew daily what was going on as well. So
while you were over there, what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you like form with over there? And do those friendships still hold like true today?
Yeah, that's right. So so even my commander, I'm going to meet with him next week. We're going to go out and just kind of reminisce. But next Friday we're going to go out to dinner. So formed a lot of friendships that. I may not stay in touch with them constantly, but if I picked up the phone or texted them today, if they're available or if they're in town, because now we're dispersed geographically.
Right.
But a lot of those guys now I know, and I'll see soldiers that I deployed with just out and about, and definitely stay connected. I think those type of bonds, those friendships will always remain in place. You always kind of remember those names and those soldiers that you worked with.
And whenever you were over there in Iraq, there probably wasn't a whole lot of time, for downtime. When you did have downtime, what would you all do for like recreation? Yeah,
so so it was usually 12 hours on, 12 hours off every day for 365 days a year, right? So. But during, so for me, my outlet was, again, I'm a physical fitness guy, so I would go to the gym, work out, eat, and go work out again, sleep, and then go on mission and repeat, right? So, so for me, and a lot of the soldiers, I observed, a lot of it was, hey, we got gym time, so let's go use it. And so I know I actually gained a lot of weight, muscle-wise, and so that was kind of my outlet, right? Let's go pick some weight up, put it back down, and repeat. Right? Yeah. It's good stuff.
So while you were over there, you were a platoon leader. Did you, were there situations whenever you ever lost a soldier?
No. So we were actually fortunate in the fact, so we did have, we would have incoming mortars almost weekly, sometimes daily. The great part about it is that they're not very accurate. So we only had one soldier. We only had a couple of soldiers injured during during some mortar attacks, and actually it wasn't even a serious injury, just some shrapnel in the leg, right in the back, buttocks area actually. So we kind of made fun of that, but from and although some of my teams were involved in firefights, nothing significant happened. I mean, it is interesting, even being in an up-armored Humvee being shot at. So I've been inside the up-armored Humvee, but it's nothing significant. You can hear the bullets, but it's we didn't get engaged. We're actually in a marketplace, and so there's a lot of crowd around us,
Yeah.
women, children, and so we didn't actually, could not engage
Right.
back. It was just necessary to kind of leave the area. So, yeah. So we were fortunate that we didn't lose anyone.
Yeah, that's really good. When you came home from the deployment, how were you received by the community and your family? Were they like, was there a big celebration?
There was, yeah. So actually, there was a big celebration. Everything. It was really nice to come back home. It was fun. So, in fact, very well received by just even strangers.
Oh.
So, if they knew that I'd been deployed or was just coming back, but definitely family members. I think we had probably 2 or 3 parties. I think with just different families right coming back, just welcoming, doing the welcome back home.
So awesome.
Yeah.
At that time, did you have, before you deployed, did you have a civilian job also?
I did, yeah. So I'm currently an information technology sales rep.
Oh, cool.
So I've been in solution sales for the last probably 15 years, supporting the retail vertical. And so I actually came back. I did an interview over the phone with a recruiter in Kuwait on my way back.
Oh, wow.
And the very next week, as soon as I landed back in America, I had dinner with another company, a technology company.
Oh, wow.
And I started the next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty quick.
Yeah. That's so I guess that kind of leads into my next question was like, when you got home, I guess you jumped right into a job, so it wasn't like I guess you weren't, like you were able to kind of get back into the job market.
I did. So, the transition, I would say, went pretty well from a job market perspective. I do think from a personal perspective, I did struggle with some things of being back because it was pretty regimented, and obviously we did that for a reason, very disciplined lifestyle in Iraq. So, again, 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
Right.
Being an officer, though, the 12 hours off was really not a given. So it was more of, hey, I need to check on my soldiers, and they were working at all hours. So I had several soldiers on the day shift, several soldiers on the night shift, and so I would make it a point to try to visit everyone. So there was a definitive change when I came back to more of that kind of 8 to 5 weekends off lifestyle, and then also being back, just being back home was interesting, just different.
Right. So
the transition probably took me from a personal perspective about 6 months, even though I was back into a job.
Right.
But it was definitely different being back home, and I didn't realize it until now looking back. I'm like, I don't know if I transitioned as well, but I think for most soldiers that definitely impacts them.
So when you came back, was it also kind of like, did it also take a while to transition from leading soldiers to leading civilians in your civilian job? Like, is there a different, I guess, like, perspective on how they operate? Or?
No, in fact, I think it's about the same.
About the same.
What's interesting is I do understand that I tended to look at some of the stressors in the civilian world from my civilian counterparts. I would kind of look at that and go, why is that stressing you out now? Right? That's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of mitigate that, take that into account, understand that my approach needed to be a little bit more probably empathetic and sympathetic to how they're responding from their daily stressors, as opposed to comparing it to a battlefield environment.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's like a whole different.
That's right.
Thing. So, whenever you like today, do you still connect with a lot of like friends from your deployment? Are you still in touch with a lot of them?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I have seen some of the soldiers that just out and about that are not in the Guard anymore. And in fact, one of my E4s who was out, I just had I just met with him probably about 2 or 3 months ago. I am meeting with my commander next week, who was my commander in Iraq. So we've remained friends. And then some of my other NCOs that progressed upward in the organization, have now since retired. There's also a luncheon or a breakfast that's held about once a quarter if they can with some of the guys that are retired. So,
that's cool.
and I try to attend as much as possible. Generally, though, they always schedule it for whatever reason on the first weekend of the month, which is when we typically have our IDT weekends.
Yeah.
So
Whenever you first, I guess, just got word that you were deploying, what was your family's reaction to that?
So I think during that time frame, so 2004, 2005 time frame, it wasn't a big surprise. I'd already been talking to them about, hey, here's potential for deployment. It's extremely possible. And so we had already begun making arrangements and preparing for when that order would come down. So wasn't a big surprise. I still think, even though you can do a lot of preparation and try to get as much stuff done as possible, it's still never enough, right? But yeah, so I think for the most part, the family was adequately prepared. I don't know if you can ever get them 100% prepared.
Right. And how did you, I guess, like get word that you were deploying? Like, how did you find out? Like,
so that was just a phone call, and hey, here's an order, and here's your report date.
Wow. Good. So how long was the period from getting that phone call to deploying to Iraq?
So I was part of the advanced parties. So I actually went to Fort Lewis, Washington. We were there for about I was there for about 6 months prior to jumping on an airplane.
Oh, so there's like a big training period.
Again, part of the advanced party, so the rest of the unit didn't get there for probably another 3 months later. So we were doing additional kind of leadership work, groundwork, and then the rest of the unit showed up. And then we ended up doing that training with them, and then jumping on a plane and going overseas.
So it's kind of going back a little bit, but when 9/11 happened, where were you and what was kind of your reaction to all of that?
Yeah, so 9/11, I was actually, my wife and I got married 4 days after 9/11.
Oh,
so
wow.
my parents were actually flying in for the wedding. And so they were, and so they grounded the plane in Memphis, and I'd actually slept in to go into work there because I was planning to pick up my parents.
Right.
So my mom was calling me, or my mom called me, I got up. She didn't know what was going on because all the televisions were turned off. And so that's when I turned on the TV and found out what was going on. So I was actually in my living room, turned on the TV, and I then made plans to drive to Memphis and pick up my parents. So I spent the day trying to get them because no planes were flying and all the rental cars were sold out.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
So, did you kind of have a feeling that there might go to war because of 9/11?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that was a general consensus that, hey, something's going to happen. There's going to be some type of response from America in that type of attack. So, and what's interesting about that, I had not even. I think that's when I was actually looking at becoming an officer. So I hadn't even finished that. I didn't commission until August of 2002. So almost a year later after the event. So.
And when you were enlisted, before you commissioned, what rank were you in before you commissioned?
I was an E6.
E6?
Staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess, what was your, was your family, did you become an officer also because, your family, was your wife on board with you wanted to become?
Oh, she absolutely was. And I had talked to her and said, hey, if I remain in the military, I'm committed to the Arkansas Army National Guard, into the Army, and so I want to make this kind of the best career I can and contribute. So kind of that next step in the challenge was becoming an officer. She was on board, fully supported me, and it's been a great experience. I've really enjoyed the challenges and the learning, the leadership development that it's provided to me, and also some of the opportunities that's granted me. So definitely on board, and she continues to remain a huge supporter for me in doing this. So,
Do you think your time as an enlisted soldier helps you, taught you how to be a good leader in the officer realm?
It has. I think it gave me a different perspective that I've really been able to channel in speaking with my current level senior NCOs and junior enlisted. There's a lot of experiences that I can relate back to and make the conversation more relevant because I also was one of them.
Right.
I was an E1, E2, E3, E4. I've also gone to the leadership courses to get promoted to E5 and to E6, and so I understand the challenges it takes for an end-day soldier to, as a citizen soldier, to both commit to an enlisted professional or education and as well as meet the challenges of your civilian job. So it's definitely something that I keep in mind. And then being a junior company grade officer and now a field grade, that's really, I've been able to provide a lot of background level and experience to that as well.
So whenever you decided to become an officer, go the officer route, were you thinking, were you kind of at a point where you were deciding on whether to make it like the National Guard a career, and that's why you became an officer? Or if you hadn't become an officer, would you have still made it like a...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I tell people that. So for me, and I'm gonna say it again. So I'm committed to serving the citizens of the state of Arkansas. So I enjoy this. I'm committed to the Arkansas Army National Guard. I'm committed to the soldiers, and so the one way I can contribute is by serving and leading in the capacity I am now. So that being said, my plan is to stay in until they kick me out, I guess. So
cool.
Yeah.
How has your wartime experiences affected your life? What has it taught you? What has it taught you about, I guess, yourself and leadership?
I think so. That's a really good question. Thinking about that, the serving in a combat environment and being part of being a platoon leader for two different platoons, really taught me a lot about resilience, more, and I would say the fitness, not even being physically fit, but being mentally fit, spiritually fit, really accepting those challenges and kind of creating some resiliency, both in your civilian job and for your personal life as well. And so in looking at combat, it's definitely something I wouldn't wish on anyone, but I definitely understand why it's needed. Because in order to ensure peace, right, you got to have those that will stand there and say, hey, we're going to fight for peace, if that makes sense. Because, there's an interesting world out there, and so, we're the guardians of that. And I'm committed to that. I'm also committed to, helping, citizens in other states when there's natural disasters and other events that occur where we might be called upon from a state level to support our state, or just help out in either floods, ice, et cetera, for different natural disasters that could occur. So I think from that perspective, I also enjoy being able to be a part of that and contributing in whatever way I can.
So I guess this is kind of similar, but what life lessons have you learned over the years from being in the military?
I think one of the life lessons for me is I can do more than I ever thought possible, right? So when I was your age, if you'd have asked me, I never would have thought I'd be sitting here having this type of conversation. So just looking back, I think that's one of the things I try to impress upon a young soldier, someone looking to get in, is, hey, there's a ton of opportunities that will both challenge you personally, professionally, but the rewards that you're going to get from a just developing leadership characteristics and attributes and the things that translate over to the civilian side are well worth it. And plus you'll get a lot of friends. You'll make a lot of friends that you'll have. And again, I have friends that have retired, but I know that if I ever retire, I'll be able to reach out to those guys and soldiers, comrades, and just say, hey, let's go have dinner. Let's meet up. I happen to be in your town. Let's go have dinner. So I think that's going to be great. So.
over the years of your service in the military, have there been any, I guess, people who have, I guess, inspired you and like pushed you to kind of like accomplish your goals, like mentors or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's another good segue. That's something now that I'm in my position, I get the chance to mentor other junior officers. And so looking back at my time, without even realizing, I've had some great mentors in the past. And so I can think back to my previous brigade commanders. I've had 3 of them now that have all become 1-star generals.
Oh, wow.
And I think the first one in particular, he's now a commandant at Leavenworth, but he provided opportunities for me to both grow professionally. And even looking back as a company battery commander, I was given some opportunities to accept the challenges of leading those company battery levels to achieve greater things. And so, looking back at that mentoring that was provided, there's always great leaders in front of you that have, don't reinvent the wheel and take from them, hey, here's some ways, here's some things to think about, and kind of guiding down that path. And so, there's been some great mentors. And in fact, the battery company commander that I'm meeting with next Friday, we're great friends, and he's been a great mentor as well. And I think through the years we've kind of mentored each other, so it's been good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how has your military service impacted your feelings about war in the military in general, I guess? Yeah,
so I'm strongly committed to the military. I don't think we always make the right decisions all the time, but again, I think that, war is an unfortunate part of the history of our world, right? And so if you look at, any rising power that's coming up that wants to challenge the incumbent, or other states, national states, then, I think there needs to be those who will stand in front of and kind of stop that and be willing to say, hey, this is not right.
Right.
And so on that, my perspective is we've got to have those people, we've got to have these standing armies that will support and defend that. So I think the U.S. military does a great job. Obviously, we can always improve, we can always get better.
Right.
And but I think from that perspective, the U.S. military as a whole is getting, from we learn how to be diplomatic first.
Right.
Let's pursue diplomacy if needed. And I think, sometimes when the diplomacy fails, then it is necessary to resort to being able to defend.
Right. So you have a son that's in the Army.
I do. Yeah.
He's in the Brigade, right?
He is. So he's in Alpha Battery, 1st of the 142nd, as a 13 Mike multiple launch rocket crew member. And so he just is an E5, a sergeant, and he is also planning to. He's going to school, going to be in ROTC, looking at becoming an officer as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What message would you like to leave for future generations that will watch this interview?
So I think a message, something profound, I'm sure. No, I think, and I've been just kind of to summarize. I really believe that it's important for young men like yourselves, any friends that you have, to kind of take up sometimes a flag, right, and say, hey, we will continue on with this tradition. I think that's important, and we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and be a part of this great state. So.
Is there anything else you feel like we haven't discussed that you'd like to address?
No, I don't think so. It's been good.